Okay, I wanted to do something special because somebody asked me on LinkedIn to watch this recent YouTube stream, and I felt that would be a good cross intersection, or I'm sorry, cross intersection of understanding what's going on the political side of wages in the Philippines, and hopefully the American market pays attention. Okay, so who you're seeing here is Representative Eli San Fernando. Yeah, he's a first-time Philippine congressman representing the ooh, Kamanggagawa Party list, a workers' sectoral party focused on labor rights, wage policy, and exposing abuses against ordinary employees. So he serves in the Philippine House as the voice of the Kamanggagawa Party list, a workers' bloc whose name literally means co-workers or fellow workers. So his legislative work centers on wage policy, the abolition of regional wage boards, and reforms to protect minimum wage earners from systematic exploitation. So outside the session hall, he's known for sharp privileged speeches and public interventions calling for the abolition of the provincial wage system, questioning whether wage settling officials have ever lived on a minimum wage themselves. Listen up, gurus. And pushing for investigations whether workers' rights are sidelined. So in this particular hearing, he's speaking as a labor representative, not as a spokesperson for the entire House. His focus is clear: national minimum wage, industry-based wage standards, and an end to the practice of using geography as a justification to pay workers less for the same work. So this episode's pretty random. It's different. So you're about to hear a Filipino labor representative talk about something every American worker, especially virtual assistants and gig workers, should care about. All right. So minimum wages that change just by crossing a bridge. So in the Philippines, they call it the provincial rate, which is a thing. In America, we have the same thing, but we don't call it provincial. We call it rural, urban. So wages are set by region, not by the work itself. So you can have two people doing the same job for the same company, but because they live on opposite sides of a boundary line, one is legally entitled to pay less or for less pay. So if you're a virtual assistant, a rep, a remote tech worker, or any kind of gig worker, this matters to you. So platforms and clients exploit these differences every single freaking day, using it, using the geography as a discount code on human labor. So forgive me, my goal is to translate this speech for the American audience. So hopefully I do my best and I don't let any of my kababayan down. I'm going to show how the same patterns are playing out in our own gig economy and what we can do differently. So I'm just going to play this and then pause enough to where I can speak on the commentary, okay? Afterwards.
Malaking kalokohan po yung kasalukuyang sistema ng pagtatakda ng sahod na nakabatay sa lugar kung saan nakatira ang mga manggagawa. Tulay lang po ang naghihiwalay sa Las Piñas at Bacoor, Cavite. Pero pag tumawid ka, mula sa Las Piñas, 695. Pag tumawid ka sa Bacoor, ang sahod na lang ng mga manggagawa sa Region 4A ay 560 pesos. Pasig at Cainta, Marikina at Rizal, kung saan poste lang ang naghihiwalay sa dalawang lugar na yun. Awa sa May Kawayan, Bulacan at sa Valenzuela. Isang iskinita lang ho ang pagitan. Tatawid lang ho ako ng daanan. Pero magpapalit ang sahod ng mga manggagawa mula 695 hanggang 500 piso na lang. Ang construction worker sa Visayas ay parehas ng ginagawa ng construction worker sa Metro Manila. Pero bakit ang labor cost para sa mga construction worker dito sa Metro Manila ay 800 piso, samantalang ang mga manggagawa sa probinsya na gumagawa ng parehas na trabaho ay napakababa? Parehong pagod, dapat parehas din ang sahod. Ang kinakain nyo dyan sa Metro Manila ay parehas din ang kinakain namin sa probinsya. Ang pangangailangan nyo sa Metro Manila ay parehas din ang pangangailangan namin sa probinsya. Kadalasan ay mas mahal pa ang mga pangunahing bilihin sa probinsya dahil sa added na transportation.
I'd like to call on Congressman Eli San Fernando kasi hindi pa nakakapagsalita yung tao samantalang
Okay. Oof. I'm your faceless. Dang it. All right. So what he just described is simple and brutal. You cross a bridge from Las Piñas to Bacoor, or walk through a narrow alley from one city to the next, and the legal minimum wage like drops. Same worker, same body, same job, but because you stepped over an invisible line, your labor is suddenly worth less. So for American listeners, imagine crossing from one county to another, or from California into Nevada, and realizing that the law says your time is cheaper on the far side of that line, even if you're still answering the same calls, coding the same apps, or monitoring the same Facebook groups. Virtual assistants, reps, and gig workers already live this reality. So clients and platforms say you're in a low-cost country, so your rate should be lower. Even when the tasks are identical and productivity is the same. That's the same logic he's attacking here. Geography as a weapon to discount human beings.
lumakbay mula sa
Yes po.
bayan ng Kongreso papuntang Senado.
Thank you po, Madam Chair. I share the same frustration po ng ating mga kagalang-galang na senador. Una po, nagpapasalamat tayo sa inyo po, Madam Chair, at sa kumiting ito para pag-usapan ng isang napaka-importante at napapanahon na topic patungkol sa pagbubuwag ng provincial rate na tinatawag natin. Just for the record po, Madam Chair, and to our distinguished colleagues here, I represent Kamanggagawa Party List. I do not represent the views of the entire House and the committee that I belong to, ang Committee on Labor. Firstly, we support Senate Bills 111 and 373, yung National Minimum Wage Bill, authored primarily by Senator Amy Marcos. And similar bills in the House have been already filed, such as House Bills 55 and 94. Likewise, we support po the legislated wage increase of 200 pesos. In the House, there are several bills already filed. Among these are the bills filed by Deputy Speaker Raymond Mendoza of the UCP Party List and House Labor Committee Chair Jolo Revilla. And allow me, Madam Chair, to just present, para mabilis po tayo, yung main reasons as to why we support itong pagbubuwag ng provincial rate. Madam Chair, and to our distinguished colleagues, it's been 36 years since the enactment of the Wage Rationalization Act of 1989. Mag-aapat na dekada na pong hindi nare-review at napag-uusapan itong batas na nagbigay daan sa pagre-regionalize ng pagtatakda ng sahod ng ating mga manggagawa. Throughout the years, GDP, real GDP.
Okay. So he's making an important clarification. He doesn't speak for the entire Philippine Congress. He speaks for a workers' party. In U.S. terms, think of him like a labor caucus representative whose primary loyalty is to workers, not the chamber's leadership or the business lobbies. He supports bills that would create a national minimum wage and abolish the provincial rate. The idea that people in the provinces deserve a lower floor just because of where they live. So in America, we've gotten used to different minimums by state and city, but virtual and gig work has exploded across borders. So when your work is done online, it's absurd to pretend that your worth is tied to your zip code or country code. The work is global. The work is global. The exploitation is global. But the protections are still fragmented. So with my company, with Kasama Connect, this is exactly what we're pushing against. Our vision is that the baseline for a rep or a remote worker is set by the nature of the work, the skill, and the output, not by a race to the bottom based on where their passport was issued.
And labor productivity have been increasing. Marami na pong mga pag-aaral ang nagsasabi at nagtuturo na ang produktibidad ng mga manggagawa at ang kita ng ating ekonomiya ay tumataas kada taon. Pero ang ating sahod ng mga manggagawa, real wages, have remained virtually the same. So kailangan po na makuha ng mga manggagawa ang makatwirang bahagi, the just share in the fruits of production. The workers are not asking for too much. What we are asking is the just share in the fruits of production, makatwirang bahagi na iniambag at ibinigay ng mga manggagawa sa ekonomiya.
Okay, so you probably heard him say that GDP, real GDP, and labor productivity has been rising for decades. Okay, and labor productivity has been rising for decades. So, but real wages have stayed almost the same. I mean, it's just like the minimum wage in the United States. It's stayed stagnant since I think what 2008, 2009 at $7.25, the federal minimum wage. So workers aren't asking for charity. They're not asking to get rich. They're not going to get paid right. They're asking for a fair share of the fruits of production. The line should hit home for Americans. Here too, worker productivity has climbed while wages have stagnated, and the gap between executive pay, platform valuations, and worker take-home pay keeps widening. So in the VA and gig world, this looks like clients getting more and more value from automation, systems, and global staffing. So while the people who actually keep those systems running see almost no improvement in their pay. The friction is removed for the buyer, and the squeeze remains for the worker. So Kasama Connect is built on a different assumption. If workers create value, they must share in that value, not just a line item cost, but as partners who capture some of the upside they help produce.
Pangalawa, Madam Chair, ang rason po kung bakit namin sinusuportahan ang National Minimum Wage ay dahil malaking kalokohan po yung kasalukuyang sistema ng pagtatakda ng sahod na nakabatay sa lugar kung saan nakatira ang mga manggagawa. Isang malinaw na halimbawa po nito. Katabi po ng Manila, sa Las Piñas, ang Cavite. Tulay lang po ang naghihiwalay sa Las Piñas at Bacoor, Cavite. Pero pag tumawid ka, mula sa Las Piñas, 695. Pag tumawid ka sa Bacoor, ang sahod na lang ng mga manggagawa sa Region 4A ay 560 pesos. Nung tumawid ba ako sa tulay na yon ay nag-iba ang presyo ng mga bilihin? Nag-iba ba ang pangangailangan ng mga manggagawa? Hindi naman ho. Kahalintulad yan ng mga manggagawa halimbawa sa Marikina at Cainta, Rizal. Pasig at Cainta, Marikina at Rizal, kung saan poste lang ang naghihiwalay sa dalawang lugar na yon. Yes po, meron din ho halimbawa sa May Kawayan, Bulacan at sa Valenzuela. Isang iskinita lang ho ang pagitan, tatawid lang ho ako ng daanan, pero magpapalit ang sahod ng mga manggagawa mula 695 hanggang 500 piso na lang. Isa pong malaking kalokohan yung kasalukuyang iskema kung papaano pinapatupad at tinatakda ang sahod ng mga
Okay. So he repeats the image because it's powerful. A bridge, an electric post, a narrow alley. These tiny physical boundaries trigger big changes in what the law says workers deserve to earn. So his question is pretty blunt. Did prices change when he crossed that bridge? Did his family's needs change when he stepped onto the other side? Of course not. But the wage rules say his labor is suddenly cheaper. So in the online world, the bridge is a login screen. You sign into a platform, it reads your IP address or your profile location and quietly recalculates what it thinks you're worth. So if you're in Manila, Cebu, or the provinces, it pushes you into lower pay tier, sometimes for identical roles that Western workers are doing for 5, 10 times the rate. That is a geographical wage discrimination encoded in software. My company, my software, Kasama Connect, exists to challenge that logic by treating work as work, not as a discount based on where you sleep.
manggagawa. Pangalawa, Madam Chair, and to our distinguished colleagues here, yung nature of work o yung kalikasan ng paggawa. Ang BPO halimbawa ho, sa Metro Cebu, Metro Davao, Metro Iloilo, Metro Jensan ay parehas ng ginagawa ng BPO worker sa Metro Manila. Ang construction worker sa Visayas ay parehas ng ginagawa ng construction worker sa Metro Manila. Pero bakit ang labor cost para sa mga construction worker dito sa Metro Manila ay 800 piso, samantalang ang mga manggagawa sa probinsya na gumagawa ng parehas na trabaho ay napakababa? Wala hong lohika ang pagtatakda ng sahod, Madam Chair, dito sa RA 6727. Mas mabigat ho ba ang semento dito sa Metro Manila? Mas magaling ho ba ang mga manggagawa dito sa Metro Manila kumpara sa mga manggagawa sa probinsya? Ang sinasabi namin dito, Madam Chair, parehong pagod, dapat parehas din ang sahod.
I like this one. So here he zooms in on BPO and construction. Call centers in Cebu, Davao, Iloilo, and General Santos, where Manny Pacquiao's from, are doing the same task as those in Metro Manila. Okay, I'm from Metro Manila. Construction workers in the provinces are lifting the same cement. Also come from province in Pampanga. Okay, so climbing the same scaffolding, risking the same injuries as those in the capital. Then he asked the question with a bit of sarcasms. Is cement heavier in Metro Manila? Are workers here more skilled? Of course not. They are equally tired. So they should be paid equally. Apply that to a VA or a rep, a gig worker, okay? Is data entry more complex when done from Los Angeles than from Laguna? Okay, Laguna is a place in the Philippines, Americans. Is a marketing funnel more sophisticated because it's built in New York instead of Santa Mesa, Manila? No, the work is work. When platforms and clients pretend otherwise, they aren't measuring skill. They're exploiting currency exchange rates and weak labor protections. The Kasama Connect's commitment is simple. Pay standards, follow the nature of the work and the skill involved. Not a map of who's easiest to underpay.
Kanina po, Madam Chair, binanggit na kaya nagkakaroon ng pagkakaiba-iba sa sahod ng mga manggagawa ay dahil doon po sa tinatawag na cost of living. At maganda po na inamin po kanina ng ating mga kasamahan dito na walang uniform na pagtatakda ng cost of living. Pero Madam Chair, pasimplihin na lang po natin ang usapan. Pwede po ba nating sabihin sa harap halimbawa ng mga Ilocano, ng mga Kabitenyo, na mas murang mabuhay sa probinsya kumpara sa Metro Manila? Can we really say that? Hinahamon po natin ang ating mga kasama dito na kung kaya nilang sabihin yan dun sa mga manggagawa and on the record, sabihin po nila. Dahil iisa lang po ang babanggitin ng mga manggagawa sa probinsya at sa Metro Manila. Ang kinakain nyo dyan sa Metro Manila ay parehas din ang kinakain namin sa probinsya. Ang pangangailangan nyo sa Metro Manila ay parehas din ang pangangailangan namin sa probinsya. Kadalasan ay mas mahal pa ang mga pangunahing bilihin sa probinsya dahil sa added na transportation cost. Dahil kalakhan po ng ating mga produkto ay ini-import, binabagsak dito sa Metro Manila, dadalhin sa mga probinsya, meron ho na dagdag na transportation.
Okay. So now he tackles the favorite excuse, cost of living, right? So officials say wages defer because it's cheaper to live in the provinces. But when pressed, they admit there's no uniform way to measure the cost of living. So he challenges them. Can you really stand in front of workers in Ilocos or Cebu and tell them on the record, it's cheaper to live there than in Manila? He points out that many basics are actually more expensive in the provinces because products are imported. And they're routed through capital. So, and then marked up with transportation costs. So American workers know this story too. Plenty of rural communities pay more for groceries, fuel, and essentials, even while being told their cost of living is lower. That narrative becomes a convenient justification for lower wages, not a rigorous metric rooted in workers' lived reality. So in the gig economy, the cost of living argument often shows up as your country is cheaper, so your rate should be lower. But tech founders and clients rarely ask, cheaper for whom? Cheaper for whom? So they see the lower wage, not the higher vulnerability. So I reject the lazy cost of living excuse in favor of transparent, fair standards tied to work, not stereotypes.
Ito pong ating final na batas, panukalang batas sa House Bill 94, Madam Chair, ay meron pong 5-year transition upang i-address po itong pangamba ng ating mga negosyante na magkaroon ng shock sa ating merkado. Ito rin po ay tatambalan ng isa pang bill, yung Industrial Wage Fixing Mechanism. Instead of regionalized wage fixing mechanism, ang atin pong pinapanukala ay industry-wide wage fixing mechanism.
Yeah. That's why I want the nationwide survey to be done, Chief. So he introduces House Bill 94 with a 5-year transition period so businesses aren't shocked by a shift toward a national minimum. Makes sense. So it's paired with another bill that would move from regional wage setting to an industrial wage setting mechanism, aligning wages with industries instead of geography. So for my fellow founders and platform designers, this matters, okay? He's not saying flip a switch overnight and bankrupt businesses, okay? He's saying let's transition intelligently from a system that prices humans by location to a system that prices work by industry. In the gig space, we need something parallel, okay? Industry standards for roles like executive VA or rep, technical rep, content strategist, fucking community manager, and so on, regardless of country. Okay, so the roadmap is to help define these categories, set clear baseline ranges, and then give both workers and clients a transparent frame to work within.
And Madam Chair, there is something fundamentally wrong when employers view their workers as just cost in their accounting books. Pag tinitignan lang ho ang mga manggagawa bilang cost sa kanilang mga accounting books, maling-mali ho yun, Madam Chair. Kasi madali nilang tanggalin yung mga manggagawa dahil nga cost lang sa accounting books ng mga employer. Ang amin pong sinasabi, tignan ang mga manggagawa bilang partners for development. Hindi bilang pabigat sa kanilang mga kumpanya na madali nilang sabihan na dahil tumataas ang presyo ng kung ano-ano mga bagay, tatanggalin namin kayo. Tignan ang mga manggagawa bilang pangunahing salik kung bakit tumatakbo ang mga kumpanya, ang mga pabrika. And that is why, Madam Chair, we support your bill, and rest assured this representation will push for the passage of that bill in the lower house. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Maraming salamat sa ating minamahal na kinatawan, Eli San Fernando. Very valuable input, therefore, from you.
Malaking kalokohan.
Okay. Enough of that. So his closing cuts to the core of our problem. When employers see workers only as costs on a spreadsheet, it becomes very easy to cut them, resist wage increases, or treat them as interchangeable. So he argues that workers should be viewed as partners, keyword partners, in development, primary factors in keeping companies and factories running. If they're only seen as burdens, it's easy to say prices are rising, we'll remove you. But if they're partners, the conversation shifts from how do we cut you? How do we grow together? So in the gig economy, we've normalized seeing people as usernames, tickets, and avatars. Founders talk about resource pools instead of human beings. Platforms optimize for margin, not for dignity. That mindset is exactly what creates exploitation. I'm going to say that again. That mindset is exactly what creates exploitation. You never build a system to share value with a line item you're trying to minimize. So Kasama Connect is intentionally designed to break that fucking pattern. We treat reps and remote workers as co-builders of value. That means fair, transparent rates, contracts that respect their rights. And over time, models where workers can share an upside, not just survive on minimums. So check this out. I'm going to close this out. So if you're listening from the United States, here's the takeaway. What he described in the Philippine wage system is not just their problem. Okay? It's a mirror. It reflects how our gig platforms, staffing agencies, and even some tech founders think about global labor. Invisible lines, bridges, alleys, zip codes, country codes turn into excuses to pay less for the same work. Cost of living becomes a story we tell to justify lower rates, not a reality we truly measure. And workers who create value are reduced to costs, to be trimmed instead of partners to grow with. My company, Kasama Connect, okay, we exist because I believe we can build something different. It's all programming, it's technology. A platform that respects workers, sets standards based on the nature of the work, and refuses to play the race to the bottom game with geography. So if you're a VA, a rep, a gig worker, or a founder who wants to participate in a fairer system, this conversation is your invitation. So let's stop using borders to justify exploitation, okay? Let's start using platforms to restore dignity and share value. Again, it's yours truly, Alistair Mercado. Thank you for listening. And thank you to Representative Eli San Fernando and for putting this issue on the record.